And we're live on YouTube.
Hello, everyone. Our guest today is someone who has gone through this process herself and is now dedicated to helping others. Please welcome Raquel Grant, an immigrant from Jamaica, also a student at Villanova University and aspiring accredited immigration consultant or immigration representative. Raquel, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
All right. And I'll turn it over to Eric real quick.
Yeah, well, thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of Meet Your New Neighbors every Monday at noon Eastern. And Raquel, we're really happy to have you here today to learn a little bit more about your story and your path coming from Jamaica, and a little bit more about how you're helping immigrants. So you've taken your life experience as an immigrant and turned it into a legal career path at a school in the United States, Villanova. And for the audience listening, Villanova is a pretty famous legal school in the United States.
All
Um,
right.
so, can we get a little intro about you? What's your 60-second intro? How you made it to the United States?
60 seconds.
Oh,
Okay. Um, first, my motivation was family reunification, but then my partner and I separated. I had to go back to Jamaica uh, with my children. I took my children with me because I went to take care of my mom, who was terminally ill. After she passed, I decided to raise them down there, even though they were born in the United States. But they kept having health challenges that could not be addressed. And after the doctors had exhausted every means known to them there, uh, the uh, the principal for the school that they were attending had asked me if they were not American born children. And I said, yeah, they were. And she's like, well, why don't you take them back and see if, the doctors there can help them? So I brought them back, not expecting to stay more than like 6 months. But due to legal issues, nothing criminal, but surrounding the children and certain things. I had to wade through a long list of legal red tape first. And by then, back then they used to stamp your passport to give you a departure date. And by then, my 6 months had run out. So, not wanting to overstay my time, I went back. I left the children with my best friend and I went back. I came back like 10 days later. And when I was coming back, the immigration officer stopped me and asked me why I was coming back into the country so quickly after I had just spent 6 months there. And I explained to him, and he said, well, that's above my pay grade, basically. So he put me in a little room and went and got his supervisor. Supervisor came, asked me basically the same set of questions, and I answered, and he understood. So he said, "Okay, this is not the way to do it. Don't keep going back and forth like that. You need to seek an extension and some other relief that I discovered were open to me." So my main reason and motivation for doing this too is that, like me, like I was at that time, there are immigrants who are struggling to make themselves legal in this country, but they're following the wrong path. So that's it in a nutshell. I hope I didn't go.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, so that was your first experience with
Yes,
U.S. immigration when you got pulled into the little room.
yes, yes. I got pulled into the little room, and I still get pulled in there because somehow my information is in their system.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
yeah, so every time I go through the airport, I still get to go into that little back room, and that further fuels my desire to help people get this done and done legally, or through legal means.
Absolutely. Well, we see that with the brain drain a lot, where people receive the wrong advice or they
Yes.
haven't received any advice at all, and they think that, like you, the way to do it is to cross the border and come back, or
Yeah.
to declare asylum. That's one of the topics we've discussed in previous live streams, that the asylum list is 20 years long,
Whew.
you know.
And I believe there are unscrupulous characters in the system that are encouraging people to file for asylum frivolously, and that's part of what's driving the backlog. It also creates a burden for true victims that need asylum. So, you know, yes, that's all. And Manos knows who I'm talking about. I have one particular person who had approached me about doing that. I advised them against it, but that person went and had a notario fill it out and got denied, and now has a longer legal battle ahead of him.
Yep, we've talked about the famous notarios, and that's
Yes.
in other countries. There are different regulations for who can do what on your behalf legally. And in the United States, it's important to find someone who's an authorized representative, which is how you and Manus met, correct?
Yes. We met in class at Villanova.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about your life in Jamaica? Where were you born? Where were you raised? And about your childhood?
Born in the parish of St. Catherine. We have parishes there, not states. I was born in the parish of St. Catherine. I went to St. Catherine High. I'm sure some of my classmates or alumni are probably going, "Yay!" I grew up. I had an okay upbringing. Some might say I had a little bit more than the average person. I've been told that frequently. So my motivation for leaving Jamaica was not on economic grounds.
Okay.
It was, to deal with my children and my children's matters. So I grew up on a farm, and I really love that. This is why I tend to gravitate towards the more rural settings here in America. One of my former work colleagues came to visit me one time, and he looked around. My development is right smack in the middle of a park. You wouldn't know it's here unless I told you how to get here. So my earliest job experience was in banking, customer relations. I was pretty good at it. There was a team of us that worked in that particular department, and we were our public relations manager kept hearing about these famous girls. And so she came over, and she's like, so she took us under her wing. So I had some experience with, public relations, marketing, and stuff like that when I left there, because of my experience in banking, finance, and promotions. I came to the attention of one of the country's top car dealers. And so I developed a particular package to market to the civil servants in Jamaica. So it's funny, I went home in, I think, 2015, and I went to see the car lot. He had sold it, and he's now in another form of business. But there was someone there staring at me, and I'm like, friend, why are you looking at me like that? And he said, well, I'm going to use the Jamaican accent. You know, remember me? Which means, you remember me? And I'm like,
Yeah.
And he said, you Miss Grant, you developed the civil servant package. I'm like, yeah, you remember that? And then he told me who he was. He's actually a coworker of mine, but he worked in like the the section where the mechanics. He was the head mechanic for the dealer. So
Now you mentioned cars. You drive on the other side of the road.
yes. Oh my gosh. Well, after I came here, it took me a while to wire my brain to driving on the right. When I go home, I have to wire my brain to driving on the left. But yes.
Now, what's crazy in the U.S. Virgin Islands, it gets even crazier because they drive on the Jamaican side of the road. They drive on the right side of the road, but they use the same cars in the United States.
Right. So yes, because we drive on the opposite sides, our cars are right-hand drive.
Right-hand drive.
Yeah,
But
and that was one of the things when I was doing the cars. There in the description it always said LHD or RHD, which means left-hand drive or right-hand drive. So yes, people do drive the cars from out of America with the where are we? We're on the left here. The driver's side is on the left here. Yes.
So speaking of the other things from back home, do you miss what are the foods do you miss? Do you miss the foods and the fruits and things?
Ackee and saltfish straight from the tree.
Yes.
I miss picking my oranges straight from the trees. It took me such a long time. I don't know. I think since I've been here, I've bought oranges in the store like maybe 6 times. It's weird because I'm so used to picking it and having it fresh. A lot of the things that I used to be able to access fresh, I can get them in cans, but it might satisfy a little bit of the craving. But it's not, that's probably the strongest adjustment I had to make is getting my food in cans and from the store.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would imagine you had to adjust because I find your English is very clear. But did you have to adjust to break your accent, to break your patois?
No, I've always spoken like this, and I'll tell you why. I went to a private school, and they taught the Queen's English.
Yes.
So our principal, Miss Mercybell Turner, was like 200 years old. He taught us that people had to understand us internationally. So we were told we could, I can do my accent. I do that with my friends, but if I have to communicate with someone, I have to be able to communicate effectively, which is to communicate in a manner in which they can understand me. So yes,
that's a very interesting for our audience because of course we have audience coming into the United States, and accent is one thing we get questions about a lot.
Yes,
the different accents coming in. We have a lot of Eastern European audience, and every accent has its own particularity, but I know exactly what you mean. I have a good university friend who's Belizean, and I've been to Belize a lot. And it's the same thing there. They teach the Queen's English.
Yes.
But then you get on the street, and if you don't understand the Creole.
You don't. Yeah, and Jamaican Creole is so infectious. People like it. They like to listen to us. And a lot of us, when we get mad, sometimes I do it too, we revert to the Creole and we cuss we cuss in Jamaican Creole.
Yeah. And believe it or not, I learned something about our Russian audience. I would have never guessed until I joined the Brain Drain team that reggae music is really popular in Russia.
Throughout Europe, actually.
Yeah.
Yes. And one of my uncles, he's based in Germany. He's a very popular reggae artist there. Hello, Uncle Blue.
Now that was part of that migration wave, correct? Part of the great
for my uncle,
was that part of the 60s wave of
late 60s, early 70s? I don't think he migrated though till probably around the 80s. I'm not sure. probably he's very interesting. He'd be an interesting addition to this, but I can't remember exactly when he migrated, and he was first based in London and then somehow wound up in Germany. And there was a very huge market for reggae music there. He once told me that's my other passion. I owned a restaurant at one point, and Jamaican cuisine is just people find it fascinating. So
Mm-hmm.
he was like, yeah, they just slurp it up.
Yeah.
I'd say I can tell you something that
Beans and rice.
yes, right. We call it rice and peas.
Rice and bean, man.
That's one of the things about my menu. When I opened in Philadelphia, I put my menu in the Jamaican dialect. So I trended at the top for like a week on because the platform through which I sold was primarily targeted at online orders. And so they logged in and they're like, well, what is this? I told you I have a knack for marketing. So
Yeah.
everybody wanted to know, I want to try this, and I'm like, it was going pretty well. But then I had a really bad car accident. And so that shut that down for a minute. And I couldn't find anyone I'm very particular. If I speak in a particular manner, it's because I'm very methodic. I'm very particular about how I do things, and the way, if I can find someone to represent me as a brand, I am not going with it. So I'd rather shut it down. I'll revisit it at some other point when I'm fully back up and running.
Well, that's a nice dream. But what you just said is very interesting about you being very particular and being good at marketing, because that lends itself exactly to what you're trying to do in
Yeah.
terms of helping to market immigrants and organize their legal case.
Oh yes, definitely. Not to keep harping on it, but when I used to work in the bank, they used to move us like from department to department. So we would learn every facet of what that particular department was doing. And everybody used to like following in my footsteps, meaning the way I left my files on my desk organized. If I fell down dead tomorrow, somebody could just step in there and keep moving. And I learned that, I don't know, it must be Miss Turner who taught me, because I'm telling my age now. Back in the years when I was in the equivalent of elementary school, it is called St. Jago Prep. We had to write with fountain pens, and fountain pens bleed, at least the ones we had. And we could never give her a page with an ink blot on it. We had, yeah. So she taught us to get things right the first time. So knowing that I was being graded on first effort, it incentivizes you to put your best work out first. So that's how I developed that process. And the teachers there were wonderful. My 5th grade teacher and my 6th grade teacher especially were amazing ladies. They taught us so much. So I'm the product of that. I believe my elementary education probably set the tone for the rest of my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you came here to be with your children, and they had some health issues. I trust they're okay now, right?
Yeah, they're adults. I could,
Okay.
yeah, they're adults. They're working. My daughter works for Google,
Okay.
and yeah, my son I think is at Con Edison, and they're both software product developers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, the immigration process, what was your personal path like?
My personal path. Okay. So going back to when
Other than sitting in the room at the airport.
I actually enjoy sitting in there. I get to see inside I get a vicarious view into other people's lives, which is beneficial to the profession. But after the supervisor readmitted me, um, I met an attorney and she was like, I'm going to help you. She didn't even practice immigration law, but she worked for a very big law firm up in Philadelphia, and they had an immigration department. So I went to her, we sat down, went through the list of things that we needed to file and and then she brought it to the supervisor at the immigration department for the firm she worked, and he passed off on it, and then they called me in for an interview. So when I came back in 2000, they told me to file the paperwork. I filed the paperwork, and I also had to file for an extension, which they granted me. And then they told me to apply for a status adjustment. And so I went in, we did that, and the interviewer was talking to me, and after a while it didn't feel like an interview anymore, and I'm like, I'm afraid to ask, and then he leaned back in his chair and he said, it's so refreshing to see someone like you here. And I'm like, I don't mean to be offensive, but I was told that immigration officers didn't like immigrants. And he said, no, what we don't like is when someone comes in here with an accent thicker than mine and try to tell me they got here 3 weeks ago when we know they've been in the country for 20 years. So he said, you know why they sent you to me? Because I used to be at the embassy in Kingston, and I know all the tricks that Jamaicans try to get up to gain access to residency and citizenship in the country. He said, I know you're telling the truth because I was there on the ground and I know exactly what you're talking about. He said, if you had lied to me, I would have had you back on that airplane so fast it would have made your head spin. So the main takeaway for me from that was don't lie to them.
All right.
Yeah,
And
don't lie. You never
take?
know.
Huh?
How long did that process take from beginning to end?
So yeah, at the conclusion of the interview, he told me, he said, if it was up to me, I would grant you everything that you applied for, including the status adjustment. But I answer to, higher ups. So I'm going to submit your file. He gave me, I think it was advanced parole and a couple of other things. He told me if they ever tried to pick you up, you show them this paperwork. And people did try to get me in trouble like that, believe it or not. He said, if they ever try to pick you up, you show them this paperwork and, have them call the office here. So he said, I'll give you everything that is within my power, my jurisdictional power to give you, but the status adjustment has to be sent to the field office in Vermont. And I'll tell you, this was in 2001. And he said, after 9/11, they have downgraded cases like yours to non-priority. So it got put in the system, and I waited about 11 or 12 years.
Wow.
Behind
okay.
a million people. Yeah. And the way I got out of that was while I was waiting, my daughter aged to 21. And then I went back to an attorney. So when I told him I had actually gone in there, done an interview, he was like, he sat up in his chair. He said, you went over there? Actually, it was with, I think, up in Philadelphia, Catholic Social Services. He said, you went in there? And I said, yeah. And well, his secretary was shocked at first. And then she ran upstairs and told him, I was trying to make an appointment. And he called me right up. And he's like, you went in there. What happened when you went? So I said, nothing. He said, it was refreshing to see somebody like me. And he'd be like, seriously? I'm like, yeah. Now I'm starting to get scared because I'm thinking, I might be in danger here. And so they made the appointment for me. I went and he said, when you come back, bring all the paperwork they gave you, which I did. And he looked through it and he's like, wow. He said, the reason I was so shocked is because most of the times when people go over there and then come to us, it's because they're in removal proceedings, but this is nowhere near removal
Yeah.
proceedings. So I said, no, I just want my daughter just turned 21. So I would like, to put my paperwork in, and he did. I don't know what that immigration officer who interviewed me put in the file about me, but like that thing went so fast that they had to add 6 months to my processing time to slow it down. So they said, we're not calling you in for another interview. We're just gonna grant they said they granted me a waiver from an additional interview, but I had to wait an additional 6 months, and they sent me work authorization so I could actually work. I used to have to, be creative about making income, which I started my own business, because I couldn't work for anybody else but myself. So that's how that came about. I was working. When I got the work authorization, I went up to New Jersey. I was working up there as a private chef. And then one day when I worked up there, I had to stay up there because the travel was horrible between here and there. And one day I came home and a pile of mail was sitting on my table. My friend was picking up my mail for me. And when I sifted through it, there was a green card. It came so
Okay.
fast, I had to call the attorney and notify him that I had gotten it.
So I'm hearing two big takeaways from that story. One is make sure everything is organized to the best of your ability.
Yes,
And
yes,
second is tell the truth because you don't know what experience the immigration officer has.
yes, yes. And they do send their officers, I call them officers, not like police officers, but they're officers of the system. And they do have them working inside of the countries. And then when they come back here, they have a vast amount of knowledge about your country conditions already. So,
Yeah.
don't try to go in there and tell them something that is not verifiable. And the other thing that was in my favor was when they sent my paperwork back to Jamaica, all the doctors there were like, yeah, she's telling the truth. We don't have this technology here, that technology there. My son had a really serious birth injury to his arm. It's called a brachial plexus injury. And they didn't have the resources to do that. So we stayed and they treated him for years. And eventually they performed surgery or tendon transfer. We don't have the facility to do that in Jamaica. So, tell the truth, simply put.
Can
Okay.
you tell us a little bit then about how you ended up at Villanova and in that program?
Well, I started out wanting to be an immigration consultant because I was running into so many people who, in my opinion, were doing it wrong, also applying for wrong benefits. And everybody got fed this line that getting married was the easiest path to a green card. And it doesn't always work that way, because if you don't go in there and remember, they see millions and millions of people with stories just like yours. So if it's not a genuine thing, most of the times they can sniff out whether you're telling the truth or not. Case in point, I have a very good friend. She actually helped me with one of my interviews for a project at Villanova. And she told me, she said, her husband was the one who had her adjuster status through marriage. And she went out with her husband one day to shop. And while she was gone, this is on a Saturday, while she was out, they came to her door and knocked on the door and asked her stepson, does so and so live here? And he's, yeah, that's my stepmom. Why? And left their card. And she's like, oh my gosh, what if I had been lying and they came to do the check to see, if it's genuine or not? She probably would have had some issues there. So, tell the truth.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move to some of the questions we have from our audience. Sam asks, how can airport security expect everyone to know every single rule by heart?
I don't think they expect you to know every single rule by heart.
Right.
The main rule you need to know is don't lie to them. Everything else will fall under that.
Yeah, make sure you have a visa before you get on the airplane.
Yeah.
Or try to cross the border, and be honest.
Yes. Now, if you're in a life and death situation, you're fleeing, say, Manos is gonna laugh. Say you're fleeing gang activity, or you're a minor who's trying to outrun your abductors. That's different. You come across the border and then you present yourself to someone, and then we take it from there. And then someone like me or Manos or Eric will take it from there, and we'll do our best to represent you. But if you get caught in a lie, we can't represent you, because that's like an instant, they'll close the book on your case instantly, and you probably won't have access to get it reopened. Am I lying, Manos?
They do not take kindly to anybody who lies. No.
Yeah. A lot of times it's a 10-year ban on reapplying.
And yep, and they
either
also
a
have
10-year or a lifetime.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the punishment for lying is severe. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Unless you're a politician. No.
They're the only ones with that type of license. PhD in lying.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm talking straight across the board. I'm not being partisan here. I don't, I try to stay away from politics. I am more interested in the people in front of me and what their stories are. And it's impossible for a politician to handle everyone with a need. So I think they focus on the need that generally benefits the public most. But when someone needs individual attention, that's why we're here. Tell one of us, and we'll go to bat for you.
All right. We have another question. Is Jamaica safe for travelers now?
Jamaica has been, I'd say, 99% safe for travelers. Jamaicans might attack each other, but they rarely ever attack foreigners. I have, in my how many years, I don't want to tell my age, I've only seen cases of attack where there was generally an underlying story that was not told to the public. Let's put it at that.
People that were looking for trouble.
They were looking for trouble. I remember one particular case. I have some friends in places. And this one lady came to the island, went off with a Rastafarian man, and she wanted that cultural immersion. She went off with him, got high on weed, and could not come down because they kept smoking and smoking. And so she disappeared from her hotel. Family couldn't find her, swore she had been abducted. And one of my specialized friends went looking for her and found her in a hotel in the Grill, which sells the highest grade of weed on the island. So she had not been abducted. She was off having a good time. And so sometimes cases like that. And we do have one or two people during COVID when travel restrictions were in place. There's this one young lady who came and tested positive and could not be put on the airplane. She called her mom and told they had kindly put her up in a 5-star hotel for free. And she called her mom, told her mom that she had been captured and abducted. And the poor mom started a big furor. And when she came, when the mom flew to Jamaica, when she came, she found that there was nothing of the sort. The girl was a JetBlue flight attendant and wanted to go home. She could not be put on an aircraft because she was positive for COVID. And so she figured if she told her mom that, and then the mom got the FBI involved, then she would get airlifted off the island or something like that. Turns out that was not the truth. So now we were in the position of having to quarantine her and her mom, you know. But
I have to ask, in recent news, how's the island faring after the hurricane?
it's pretty bad. It's the strongest hurricane in recorded history. And I went through one in 1987, and at that time the winds were only 150 miles per hour. Did significant damage then, but this was something different. The winds were in excess of 185 miles per hour. A friend of mine here said when he was watching the coverage, he said it came up that some winds were in excess of 220 miles per hour. The other part to that was that the system was very slow moving. Usually when the storms come in, they cut right through and they go within like a matter of hours. But this one took her time and chewed up the island pretty good. So there are people still marooned in communities like Westmoreland. I lived there briefly after I got married. The side of the island I come from wasn't too badly impacted, but someone sent me some drone footage. I was looking and I couldn't even find a house where I used to live.
Yeah, because if it's like a lot of the islands, it's not all the buildings concrete.
No. The buildings in Jamaica are hurricane. They can withstand hurricane force. Most of them, I would say, because they're block and concrete. The problem usually are the roofs. We have not. The only thing that can withstand hurricane strength winds is like a slab roof, concrete. But if we have shingles or zinc or anything like that, it's gonna go flying. And that's what happened to a lot of people. So I guess we have to revisit how we do these houses. Not just the houses, but the roofs. Yeah. We don't, people, I don't know, people are on here talking about people live in huts. They do not live in huts. Not anyone that, there are people who choose, like down in the grill, there were people who do the huts because tourists like them and they're on the beach, but most of the houses are in concrete and cement structures.
Okay. I have a question here about, is it patois?
Patois.
Patois. Is it a dialect or a separate language?
Why have you speak patois?
Well, people mistakenly label the language, the dialect that we speak as patois. It's not patois, it's Jamaican Creole, because there are words inside. A Creole is a language where there are words inside of it that's not readily understood outside of the culture. So it's a patois. It's not a patois, it's a Jamaican Creole. So I always tell people, if you want to call it patois, then use the dialect form of it, which is P-A-T-W-A, patois. But it's not P-A-T-O-I-S. P-A-T-O-I-S is a French derivative. So like what the Haitian Creole would be more of a patois than ours, because they're French speaking and we're English speaking.
I
Okay.
bet your Creole is probably closer to Belize because part of the British.
Probably.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, there are a couple islands that sound just like Jamaicans. I can't remember. I can't remember if it's St. Vincent or St. Lucia. Simply because we were colonized by the same set of Europeans who spoke the same type of English, so we tended to sound the same. But then other islands had people from other sections of Europe, and they sounded more like them. Also, something I learned about in history class was during the building of the Panama Canal, a lot of Jamaicans went to work on it. We even have a song that our cultural committee developed from that. But a lot of Jamaicans went there, and they had different demarcations. You had Silver City, Gold City, all kinds of demarcations. But the thing that I found interesting was one day I met a Panamanian young man, and the way he was firing off that PATWA, patois, I'm like, where are you from? He's like, oh, I'm Panamanian. I'm like, no. He said, yes. So it turns out his grandparents, so there's sections in Panama where they're Jamaican, people of Jamaican descent in settlements there. So
It's always interesting when you see somebody speaking an accent that they don't look like they should be speaking that accent.
no,
Yeah.
I mean, he looked like us, but the reason he caught my attention was he was firing off Jamaican words,
Mm-hmm.
some of the most famous expletives, and I'm like, wait a minute, where are you from? Here, come talk to your auntie. Why are you cussing out in public? So I said, what part of the island are you from? He said, I'm from Panama. I'm like, get out. I said, are you pulling my legs? He said, no. And then I remembered I had done in history class, about the Jamaicans going to work on the Panama Canal. So he was a descendant of those people. And even here, I will talk to, millennials and Gen Zers, and I hear them, and I'm like, if you were born in America, I bet you grew up in a Jamaican household. And they're like, how do you know? Because I have an ear for an accent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now we have another question here about Jamaican society. So do you have a lot of Jamaican diaspora that you interact with in the United States? I know there's a big community in New York area, but
I used to live in New York at one point. They call Brooklyn Little Jamaica. I used to live down in Sheepshead Bay, but yeah, we tend to embrace each other. My two best friends, one of them's deceased. They're sisters. They were so instrumental in my life when I came here. And the community that I live in right now, we have pockets of Jamaicans. So, we get together at like Thanksgiving. We don't do that so much anymore because a lot of us have evolved into life, work, all kinds of stuff. But the communities that I had that opened their arms to me were very nurturing, and were very nurturing towards my children.
so here's a good one. You still have the king on your money?
Oh no. Nope. Jamaican. I can't remember which American politician went to Jamaica, and he was shocked when he saw Jamaicans on Jamaican money. So no, we don't have. Jamaica gained independence from Great Britain in 1962, I think. So we have Emancipation Day, and a week between Emancipation Day and our independence. We celebrate our independence on the 6th of August, but also any Monday that's close to the 6th of August.
So you're not officially part of the Commonwealth.
We are part of the British Commonwealth because we still have what's called a Governor General. So I
Uh-huh.
guess it that, but a lot of people have been clamoring for us to go full republic.
Okay. Another question from our audience: how important are solid English speaking skills for an aspiring immigrant? And can a brilliant or extremely poor command of the language make a real difference?
I believe that is true. I'd say yes. Being
Okay.
able to effectively communicate is very important. My current job, I have another Jamaican there, and his accent is so thick, and I sit inside of, I'm listening to him and the dispatchers going back and forth, and they're like, "Can you repeat that?" And she's going, "What did you say?" And I sometimes I try to offer some translation and be a buffer, but his accent is real thick. And I have other people that I've met, and I have to be like, they don't understand what you're saying, right? So speak so they can understand you. And yeah,
A
so
lot of
Yeah.
a lot of times what happens is the immigrant, whatever the diaspora is, they've learned the English and they've heard people speaking English with that accent
mhm.
in their whole community. So they think they're being understood.
No,
You
it
know?
only understood within their community. And
Yeah.
I'm glad I learned that skill before I came here to communicate effectively. I think I
I
have a
know.
talent for communication, and then combined with the knowledge that, people outside of my circle need to be able to understand me.
I know a lot of older people here in particular have a problem understanding Indian accents, particularly in a customer service environment. And that takes a little bit of practice. And of course, Indian people grow up speaking English. They understand it perfectly and they think they're being understood. And so
Because their accent is mixed with their native language, and they were once part of the British colony too. So that can pose a challenge. They speak. Is there
my advice is always just slow down.
slowly.
Just slow down. Yep.
And
Yeah.
perhaps if you have the opportunity, write down what you want to say first and
Hmm.
practice saying it, and until you have it clearly. It might be challenging, for people, especially if it's one of those languages where you rattle off, and Jamaicans can do that too. They get
Hmm.
excited. Slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down, so someone can understand you.
I
Yeah,
always
just
typically get a little bit embarrassed when an immigrant asks me to explain a participle, an article, or present past tense, and I have no clue what they're talking about.
Oh
But
yeah.
you know,
yeah.
we tend to take things for take it for granted that we speak English, but we don't necessarily know the dynamics of structuring a sentence. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I remember I learned that in second grade in elementary
Yes,
school about
I'm,
past
I'm sure I
participle.
did too, but I don't
Yeah,
remember second grade.
who remembers? The thing is, if you probably asked me to do that, I think in our first module they had a class on that, and
Yes,
I'm
they
looking
did.
and me when I did my finals, and I'm not bragging, when I did my finals, I had a distinction in communication, English language communication, English literature, and all that good stuff. And when I saw my second grade lesson in front of me, I was stumped. I'm like, I just do it effortlessly because I learned, to do it. But if I were asked to deconstruct a sentence right now, I would be hard pressed.
Yeah, you and me both. I
Yes,
remember many hours of diagramming sentences.
yeah. The
Yeah.
little box with the verb and the predicate, and they must agree. And then there are subtle nuances here in how you guys speak. So some of this
Oh,
stuff I have to rewire my brain. For instance, Americans tend to say different than, and we were raised to say different from, because there's contrast and comparison.
or how do you say when you're referring to how somebody is named? Do you say this person is named somebody, or do you say they're called something?
This person, which
This
both, yeah, the more likely you will hear this person's name is,
Here's the other tell.
huh?
Literally, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Say literally.
Literally,
That's one word you can tell very easy if it's an American, if they've been trained on British, or
America,
it's
yeah.
American. We eat it. We say literally.
Well, and they taught us, don't say it's literal unless it's actually factually true.
Yeah.
So it literally, I think, is more used more as an adjective or an adverb here, whereas in other countries that speak English, it's actually to establish a true fact, you know. So that's where the differences would come in. It's little things. I had to relearn spelling the word jewelry. I'm like,
Yes.
I had to learn
Yeah.
to drop the U out of neighbor.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few words like that. Oh,
And
there's a couple in engineering that I would use all the, I can't remember off the top of my head, but
yeah,
yes.
the
Okay.
word so when I was a teenager and I was in high school, I wrote a story, and I had all right as one word, and my teacher told me no, two separate words. So I still do that now, which isn't technically wrong, but Americans join it. The other
Do you
uh
say Z?
they say Z, I said Z. I bucked the because A B C D E F G.
Yeah.
How you gonna come up with Z? No, it has to rhyme. And the other word that my daughter and I tussle over is aluminium. We were
Oh
ready,
yeah.
and she's like,
Aluminum.
aluminum, it's aluminum.
Yep.
And I keep saying, no, it's aluminium. She's like, no, it's aluminum. So, that's one of the words I distinctly remember them telling us. It's aluminium. So you guys dropped the I out of it. So what can I say? When you're in Rome.
Yeah. Well, we have this one question from our audience. What was the moment or event that made you first feel like your new country was starting to feel like home? Perhaps it hasn't even occurred yet, but maybe it has.
It has.
Okay,
It's
good.
like home for me. You can have two homes. You know, I grew up in one and I currently occupy one. When I came back, I had to uproot my family from everything that I knew. And so at first I didn't even have my own place. So that was kind of a challenge for me, being inside of someone else's household. But the thing is, I took my children and I told them the only thing that changed about you is geography. You're still the same person inside, you still have the same brilliance, and we are still going to actualize our dreams. And the best part of my life was when I got my own space. I was able to rent an apartment, move my family in, and we didn't even have furniture when we first moved in, but sleeping on a carpet was like heaven. I didn't have to hear anyone else's voice, and except my children. So that, and I had looked at several. Now it's interesting that you use that word home, because I looked at several apartments and none of them resonated with me. And the one that I actually moved into, as soon as I stepped in there, it said home to me. I heard that in my head. So that's when it became home for me. And also, after I lived in an apartment for a couple of years, I bought my home, and now this is where I'm talking to you from. And yeah.
Okay.
So it feels like home for me.
Except in the wintertime, I bet you wish you were in Jamaica.
No,
No.
no. I tell all my
Or
friends
you love winter.
I'm the only Jamaican who likes the cold.
Yeah. So you have to, for the record, there really was a Jamaican bobsled team.
Yes. Yes, yes. That was funny. Those guys started practicing on the sand first, and then I don't know how. I guess I'm not sure of the entire story, but and then because they did that, other islands started entering the Winter Olympics with bobsled teams. I would say my son told me, he said, there's a reason why God only gave us 144 miles and 84 miles wide. And I'm like, why? He said, we are like the biggest exporter of culture. And so if we were any bigger, I think we would be like a world power, probably have everybody.
Well, we'd probably have more world peace if y'all were in charge.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Jamaicans will fight each other at home, but when we're outside of the country, we are united. We don't care. We forget the fight. We'll unite behind a cause. And the thing with Jamaicans is that we love everybody. So, in places like Negril, we have big pockets of people who came from Germany and other parts of Europe came, and they're like, yeah, we're not going back. So if you see a Caucasian lady with dreadlocks, she probably came from Europe and was like, I'm never going back. The only thing I don't like about that, not Germany, but per se, but people come in and they buy up the property and price it out of the reach of locals. Now that I don't like. So, but that's a drawback to it. We welcome everybody,
Okay.
The only culture shock I had was the very first time someone called me the N-word. I'm like, what? Yep. In a place called Aston, Pennsylvania, and called, yep, me and my children. And they told us to go back to Chester. And I'm like, I don't live in Chester. Chester being, because it's a predominantly people of African descent live there. They thought I was there. I said, nah, this one's different. I'm Jamaican.
Yeah.
Yeah, I run a little differently. So,
well, nobody accused bigots to have a IQ of triple digits.
Yep, single digit IQs.
Yes. I do have a question here. Just to touch on it real quickly, has any member of your family been affected by the recent hurricane that hammered Jamaica?
There are some family members that we have not been able to get in touch with yet. My auntie and my uncle, my parents are deceased. My auntie and my uncle are okay. So, and most of my cousins are okay, but there are one or two cousins that we have not been able to locate yet. So,
okay. Well, hopefully they'll be okay.
it could be that they're just isolated and unable to communicate because the roads are torn up pretty bad. And then the ones who live in like mountainous regions, when because the roads follow like the little cliffs. So if the road goes, there's no way to get across it. And so we've had one of the primary problems we have in Jamaica when we have weather systems is landslides, because we have a lot of limestone there. So the landslides will happen, the road will disintegrate, and it's hard to navigate from. So they have been airlifting supplies to people, and hopefully, everybody will eventually be accounted for.
Okay. What
And
is?
please be
Okay.
careful let me put this out there because I went online the other day and there's this lady going, Jamaica, you can donate here. It was her personal Cash App.
Oh, well,
Yeah. She
Yeah,
was,
wherever there's disaster, the scammers come
there's
out.
always a scammer. So I said, hello. I said, who are you affiliated with? And when I started plugging her with questions, she took it down and disappeared.
okay. Well, are you still there?
No, I
Is
think
Raquel still with us?
I think we just lost her.
Okay. All right.
Well,
Well-
I think we just lost her, but we were coming up on the end of the hour anyway. So what a wonderful, interesting conversation, eh, Manus?
Yes, I think it was very interesting. The audience was definitely participating, and they had a lot of questions. And if anybody who sees this later has questions, just please send them in the comments, and we'll pass it along.
Yeah, for sure. And then just to remind everybody again to tune in, watch us every Monday at noon Eastern.
Yes.
We will be announcing our next exciting guest sometime at the end of this week. Oh, we have a very special episode coming up next week. Next week is going to be our Thanksgiving celebration, Brain Drain's first Thanksgiving. So if you tuned in for our Halloween edition, you won't want to miss next week because we'll be talking about everything from what do Americans eat to planes, trains, and automobiles.
And you're making the turkey, right?
Well, we can try.
Okay. All right.
All right. With that, thanks for joining. Like, follow,
Yes.
share, subscribe. If you support immigration through legal means and have the means, you can support us at braindrain.work/donate. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this and maybe even learned something new. If you did, don't just vanish into the algorithm. Hit like, subscribe, and follow us on social. It's the easiest way to support our work and make sure you never miss what's next. Want to stay in the loop without relying on big tech's mood swings? Sign up for our monthly newsletter. And if you've got the means, donations of any size keep our programs running strong. As a 501c3, your gift is tax deductible where the law allows. Together, we can turn Brain Drain into America's next big breakthrough.